there's a distance between us. It's getting hard to reach out. Haven't seen you in seasons, but all I hear is your voice. I know my limits, you can break me down, but I'll stay till the finish line. And I've been counting minutes for quite some time now, just to see you again. And I've been counting days to get away, to see you again, see you again. Been fighting ways to get away, to see you again, see you again. We got millions of reasons to let it all go. Hope we're not too broken. I know I'm not always strong, and I've been counting days to get away, to see you again, see you again. Been fighting ways to get away, to see you again, see you again.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Gin College Podcast. I'm your host, John J. II. Thank you so much for joining us today on a Thursday, the 25th of January, 2024. We're in the new year, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't know it, we're in the new year. Happy to be here. Happy to be in 2024, moving on, onward and upward. And it's exciting over here at GSN, and especially for the GCP. Got some housekeeping things to talk about, to get involved with tonight on the show. So I want to thank everybody for joining us, and we'll get right into it here. First off, we got to talk about the elephant in the room, which is Jim Harbaugh, as he has been named the new head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. And this is big news. This is big news because this guy right here, and I've said it publicly before. I've told people publicly, friends, family, etc., that this very may well be my favorite head coach in college football. And it played out that way. And it really appears to be that way. And we've seen why. We saw why, because not only what he is capable of doing as a head coach, but most importantly, what he's able to do with those around him, mostly his coaching staff, Sharon Moore, namely, and just how he can really breed his team to be able to follow someone other than himself, even though he really instills a lot of these values, or did instill a lot of the values in these Michigan Wolverines athletes. We know that. We've seen it, and it really played out and panned out in their favor this past season with them winning the national championship. He did everything he had to do. Michigan fans are somber. Me seeing a great leave the college football sphere, it's just another one to drop. Next to Nick Saban, which is also a coaching great that fell to retirement this year. We'll get into Nick Saban, our buddy Saban, here in a little bit, just to kind of talk about some things regarding him. But nevertheless, Harbaugh achieved what he had to do, and he joins coaches of the highest caliber with, having a championship under his belt during his tenure, after all the trials and tribulations, after the trouble with the snap, everything from the sign stealing to the Connor Stallions to having the cheeseburger gate to going on winning a national championship. Those three things, ladies and gentlemen, all happen in the same year. So the question remains, who is going to take Jim Harbaugh's place? Who's next in line to take over for the man himself, Jim Harbaugh? Is it Sharon Moore? Maybe, maybe not. Mike Hart, the running backs coach for Michigan, has also been named a candidate for the head coaching position, but there's a long list of coaches that have been named possible coaches for the Michigan Wolverines going into the 2024-25 season. So we all know Sharon Moore's tenure and everything has played a role, especially in this season. We haven't seen him in the public eye as much as we did this season. But obviously he's next in line. I think he's next in line. I think he deserves the job. He was with the team through the trenches. I think no one deserves it more than Sharon Moore, personally. And that's coming from a non-Michigan fan. I think I'd have a lot of good company with Michigan fans that would agree with that statement. Another coach that has been named a candidate is Brian Kelly, the coach of LSU. And we know that he was a traitor as soon as he left and jumped ship and went away from Notre Dame, left them in shambles, jumped to LSU. Who's to say he won't do it again? Okay, he hasn't been with LSU that long, and there's deals to be made where he can get out of his contract. The coaching carousel is in full effect. We know that. Also, the Kansas coach, Lance Leipold, is also looking at the job. And you're looking at Michigan Wolverines, they just coming off a championship. Who's going to take the helm? Who deserves it? Who thinks they're worthy enough to do it? And whoever has that decision to make has a tough decision to make, because I don't think they're short for money. They're not short for funds, and they're looking for a good candidate that can take over at the helm. Obviously, it's big shoes to fill, but someone's got to do it. Jesse Minter, the Michigan defensive coordinator, has also been named a candidate, and he shows a lot of promise. He was, an assistant coach for his brother John at the Baltimore Ravens, and he's done a lot at the next level. So we've seen him, do a good job at the next level. Who's to say he can't be the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines? He's in the category. He's in the conversation, and as others are. There's a lot of names being thrown into a hat, and it was kind of when it happened to Michigan State, a little bit different circumstances. But the conversation was similar. Tall task. Now, you got a lot of guys leaving Michigan as well, seniors that are departing to the NFL draft. And, whether they're going to jump in the transfer portal, who knows? That's kind of up for debate. And we don't really know what's going to happen. We do know this, though. These two guys right here, Blake Corum and J.J. McCarthy, have declared for the draft, two of the most vital weapons to the Michigan Wolverines offense. That's evident. That's been stamped in stone. They're hitting the bricks, and they're getting out of Dodge as well, similar to Jim Harbaugh. And they're going to go to the same place, most likely. They're going to see Jim at the next level. So it's exciting stuff for Michigan. They achieved the goals that they had to achieve, and they did what they had to do. The last thing that we got to talk about is, and I've had a lot of people ask me this, hey, John, do you think that there should be an asterisk next to this Michigan Wolverines championship victory? And I tell them this. While it's easy to post asterisk images on Instagram and do things of that nature, participate in that type of behavior, it's easy to throw asterisks at the Michigan Wolverines football program. It's real easy to do, given what happened with Cheeseburger Gate, Connor Stallions, And basically, Michigan and others have been put under a microscope in this regard to kind of see what's going on with the sign stealing. I think it's a lot of bullshit. I think it's a big facade. It's a fugazi, and I think it's not correct to put an asterisk next to this championship victory because they went far. They did everything they had to do. And we spelled out the P's and Q's. We crossed the T's. We dotted the I's as far as what does it mean to steal signs? How do you steal signs? And I explained it very, very fundamentally. I broke it down to a fundamental standpoint. I broke it down to an elementary level where anyone could understand it. A preschooler could understand it and tell me it back and forth to a T. And that is, if you are stealing signs, if you are Connor Stallions, you're stealing signs, what do you also have to do? You also have to use those signs to your advantage. Well, how do you do that? You have to, in real time, read the signs that the defense or offense, the sidelines are basically doing to the players on the field. You either have to be relaying that information, have that prior knowledge in your head as players on the field, whether you're on the offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball. And you got to have the ability to, whether you got someone in your head, in your earphones or not, in your helmet talking to you on the sidelines or upstairs, you got to be able to implement that information in real time, which is damn near impossible to do. You could tell the other team their signs and say, hey, this is our sign. This means we're blitzing, for example. Okay, the offense says that. Someone's in JJ's ear. Hey, JJ, they're bringing the blitz. Okay, let's run an audible. Let's run the screen or jet sweep, something like that. Play action. Do something to divert the blitz. Now, if they can do that and implement that information in real time, then hats off to them. Kudos to them. I think they deserve an award for being able to do that and outsmart the opponent in that regard. So there's just no weight to it. The cheeseburger gate thing, there's really no disadvantages there that you're putting forth for any type of unfair advantage for Michigan or its athletes, coaches, etc. So it's a lot of hot air. It's a lot of people going after Michigan. And I'm sitting here defending Michigan and defending their championship and defending their right to have this championship without an asterisk next to it. So if it's coming from me, it's not fluff. It's not BS. And I firmly stand behind that. They deserved it. They got the job done. They beat Ohio State. They beat Alabama. And they beat a very sorry Washington Huskies team where Michael Penix just didn't show up to the game. So you can say they got lucky. You can say they squeaked one by. But no matter how you put it, it's a win in the win column. It's a championship that's in the rafters. And be it as it may. But that's the result. So they have to live with that. Everyone has to live with that. Moving on, we have to talk about NIL. NIL. Is NIL ruining college athletics? This question comes up a lot. We talk about it here periodically on the show. And it's something that I have to hold near and dear to my heart because I grew up in an era where NIL didn't exist. I was told and taught that if you're in college, that's the proving ground stage. No matter what you're doing, on or off the field, and how positively it affects the game and affects the athletes, I think that's somewhat beside the point. This comes down to a principle type of standpoint where you got to take a stand, as the NCAA has not done. They've done the opposite of that, and they've appeased the athletes, which there's strong camps and there's strong arguments for both camps in regards to, do college athletes deserve to get paid or not? So I'm the firm believer that in a very real way, NIL is ruining college athletics, but it's not just due to the NIL. It's due to a lot of things. But when you come to the recruiting class and you talk about coaches like Nick Saban, which pride themselves off their recruiting classes, they pride themselves off of their personnel that are able to go and get these 5-star recruits from out of high school and say, hey, we want you to come play for the Crimson Tide. That's something that is a very strong factor. It's a rabbit in your hat, if you could go that far and say that. That's what Nick Saban had, and that's what Nick Saban lost. So just looking at NIL, what does that mean? You see the South Carolina Gamecocks logo there with a banner naming NIL, name, image, likeness, clear cut and dry. It's right there for you to look at. So it boils down to, is NIL ruining college athletics? Yes or no? I'm going to say yes, because I would say in conjunction with NIL, with paying college athletes, they're not only able to be bought out, but they're also able to have their minds infiltrated with this is about money. This is about your livelihood in a professional way, in a professional perspective. But the problem is you're not in that professional level yet. You're playing to get to that professional level. So if you're just chasing the money, when does that end? You should be able to prove yourself in college without being paid, and then see what happens at the next level, and then you achieve that fame and that that monetary value to your name and to everything that you've built from a college athlete on forward to the next level, which in this case would be the NFL for football, being in that same category. So I think the proving ground stage should still be there. But in conjunction with that, not only is NIL ruining college athletics, but it's in conjunction with the transfer portal. The transfer portal is, I would argue, ruining college football and college athletics more than NIL. More than NIL. And let me spell it out for you. So the transfer portal, it's similar to the coaching carousel too, but it's definitely not as bad. And I think it's more warranted from a coaching standpoint. You've already proven yourself. And if you have a better offer, obviously, if you want to breach your contract or do whatever you got to do there, that's a decision for the higher ups to make. For the transfer portal, for players to transfer from a school and say, hey, you know what? I just really don't like this coach. I'm going to transfer the hell out of here. I moved everything to this school, but I can just jump up and leave. And then you got issues with the eligibility for the playing seasons. And it's just a huge mess. You can never count on any athletes sticking it out and playing for any significant amount of time. Before, you needed to get signatures, you need to get letters of recommendation. Okay, this is where I think this guy should be able to transfer. This is why he should be able to move. And it was a big deal back in those days. Before the transfer portal became commonplace, you had to go and jump through a lot of hoops if you wanted to, say, move from a Michigan to a Texas or to an Alabama, or from any school to any other school. It came down to prominence. It came down to who was going to go to bat for you. And it really came down to, does it benefit the team for you to leave and for us to bring someone else on? Chances are that's not the case if they're a high, 4-star, 5-star guy out of high school. Doesn't matter how long they played there, if they're playing a pivotal role, that could be the season. And I don't want to put that on one player, but it's definitely, if you're taking away assets, you're taking away support, structure to a team, it's going to affect the outcome of some games. It's undoubtedly the case, and you can't argue that. So to see the transfer portal in conjunction with NIL, because they do work hand in hand, believe it or not. If I say, hey, Texas is going to pay me 2.5 mil, but Alabama is going to pay me 3, why would I come play for Florida State? You guys aren't even offering me a fraction of that. So it comes down to a money game. How much are you offering me? I'm a college student. What am I doing with that kind of money? First of all, and it just becomes a mess because these athletes have the ability to jump ship at any given time and say, "Hey, I'm gonna go play for these guys." No, it's like getting traded. It's like they have the controls to trade themselves. It's not right. It's not okay. Back in the same light, talking about Nick Saban, it was very obvious that he ended his career, his tenure at Alabama at the Crimson Tide, rather abruptly. It wasn't a secret. It wasn't hidden. It was obvious. We've seen the loss, and the Michigan Wolverines are going to have that as a feather in their cap forever. We were the last team to beat Nick Saban, and that's quite the feat. It was similar to when the Lions beat Aaron Rodgers for the last time in a Green Bay Packers uniform. The last team that he lost to in a Packers uniform was the Detroit Lions. So that's a feather in their cap, regardless of how you look at it. But Nick Saban had been caught on the record saying he didn't like NIL. He didn't like where college football was going with NIL being at the forefront. He knew it was ruining his ability to get new recruits, to get those 5-star recruits and really build his team. And we saw that play out with the team that he had this year, and they still had a run. That's the beautiful part, is they still had a run. They still had a chance, even with the NIL and transfer portals in place. But it comes back to the question, is it ruining college athletics? The jury's still out. It's obviously, you're going to hear different answers from different people, from different camps. Regardless of where they stand, you're going to hear differing opinions on it. And most people that are having opinions on it, it's not affecting them individually, but it's affecting the game they love. It's affecting the sport they love to watch on the weekends, and it gives a lot of these people the will to live. So to see it happen, to see it affect the game so much and really create a new upper hand to the structure, and this is regardless of all the carousel changes that we've seen with teams jumping ship in their conferences and saying, hey, we're done with the Pac-12. We're jumping the Big Ten. Or we're Texas, get rid of the Big 12. We don't give a shit about the Big 12. Let's go jump in the SEC. So you see that happening too, and that's restructuring college sports and college football as a whole right there. But when you throw, I call it team conference carousel, whatever you want to call it, changing conferences, you got coaching carousel, you got NIL, and you got the transfer portal. Okay, that's 4 things right there that have drastically affected college sports and college football over the last decade. And you can't argue it any other way. But is it ruining college football? The jury's still out. I'll let you guys answer that one. It's not for me to decide. It's not for me to decide. I'm just watching it unfold. And I'm a guy that really witnessed the good old days of college sports, and I'm witnessing the threshold take place. And what I'm really doing is I'm listening to the old heads. I'm listening to the old heads because they know how it used to be. They know the glory days. And I even put Mr. Saban here, Coach Saban, in that category of the old heads. And people said, hey, he's running out of steam. He wants to be done. He wants to take it easy and pump the brakes a little bit. But I say bullshit. I say bullshit to that because I think Nick Saban had a lot of fire left in him. He had a lot of coaching left in him. And he wasn't done yet. He's not content with ending his season this way. Now, if he goes on and say he won the national championship with Milroe and all his assets this year, which I would argue they were undermanned, if he goes on and wins a championship and then leaves, then you might not even have to bring the NIL or transfer portals into the conversation because he was content with one more win, one more victory at the championship level in the college football playoff, and not to mention the last year for a 4-team format, which that brings a whole new aspect into it. You got all these aspects, all these things you're throwing at a dartboard, NIL, transfer portal, coaching carousel, conference carousel. It's a lot to take in. It's a lot to really understand all at once and put into your mind and say, hey, this makes sense. This is college football now. It's a lot. So, it's a changing landscape. It's a changing landscape. We're witnessing it happen. We're witnessing changes, and how that will bode with a 12-team format in the college football playoff. It's yet to be determined how that will play out, how that will pan out. I'm excited. I think that's a good sign, a move in the right direction, having a 12-team format. I think they should have had that since the beginning of time. When they came out with the college football playoff, have a 12-team or have an 8-team, have something like that. Give the first round buys to the 1 seeds. That is good. That all makes sense. It checks out. But it gives those teams, those lower seeds, those teams that might not have a chance at a college football championship, a CFP championship, gives them a chance to maybe earn a lower seed. And next thing you know, you're competing for a championship if you have the team. If you have the team. Bottom line is it's harder to build those teams. It's harder to breed a culture at a university, at a college, in a locker room, the D1 locker room, Power 5. And we're seeing it affect the best of the best schools. And we're seeing players being able to trade themselves. I think it's BS. I think it's BS. Hot take or not, I think it's BS. I think it's ruining college football. I really do. I'd put Sobo in that category of the experienced college football fans, those that have been around. They've been around the block a few times, and we have the ability to take notes from them, take things into account, and then we form our own perspectives and our own ideologies based on what those that have came before us have experienced and that they have watched. And I think Sobo would agree with me. And it's similar, you can even compare it to PGA and LIV. It's ruining golf in a way because what's going on? They're throwing money at these athletes. It's sometimes too much money for them to turn away. So what are they going to do? They're going to jump at the money. They're going to say, give me the money. I'm already playing golf. I'm still playing at a professional level, whether you call the LIV Golf Tour professional or not. I think there's enough professionals in it where it's becoming that. but it lost the luster of it. You don't have the culture, you don't have the tradition, and that's kind of similar to what's happening. We're seeing money infiltrate our sports, and it's been happening for a semi-long time as far as large maxed out contracts go, especially at the professional level. But I think the professional level gets to stand at a higher echelon and a different set of standards compared to collegiate athletes that are basically still wet behind the ears. They have a long way to go. They have a lot of maturing to do. And it's ruining their college experience in a way because they're getting this money thrown at them when they're really not ready to have that happen yet. Just go play the sport. You got recruited. You got asked to play on the team, whether you got a full, partial scholarship, whatever you got, even if you walked on. You should have the ability to prove yourself before you can take part in the spoils of riches. That's my opinion. That's the hot take. Moving on, talking about college basketball and the road to March, we are shifting gears. We're shifting gears for the GCP to move forward into March, which we still have all of February left. A lot of great games to take place in the college football or college basketball world. And it's a lot of exciting stuff, a lot of great basketball. Teams are getting fine-tuned. My Michigan State Spartans, they're still worried about getting fine-tuned. They got to make free throws, got to make layups. If we can make a couple threes, if we can get Jaden Akins to make a couple threes on the outside, Malik Hall plays well. Hogard doesn't play like an idiot. He drives the ball and gets aggressive like he knows he has to do. And, you got to count on a lot of players. It can't just be one guy. It can't just be Tyson Walker. Okay, it can't just be Tyson Walker. Mady Sissoko, you got to get big. You got to act like you're a basketball player. If you don't do that, Michigan State is not going to do well. They're not going to succeed. They're not going to go deep in the tournament. It's really comes down to this. Are you a big man or not? Cooper's not it, and Jackson Kohler's not it. He hasn't had enough reps this year. And Mady Sissoko, compared to a Zach Edey, he is going to be outsized, believe it or not. And he's a big guy. He's going to be outsized, but if you can lock down Zach Edey the best you can without fouling the shit out of him, just prevent him from getting easy dunks. That's all you got to do. Just play like the big man, play like you mean it, and play the game of basketball like you know how to do. Every one of those athletes out there playing for Tom Izzo, and he's no exception to the transfer portal or NIL either, mind you. This is affecting college basketball as well. So how he's dealing with that, I would love to know. But for all these athletes that might be, lackluster, so to speak, he's seen something in them that said, hey, I got to have this guy on my team. This guy's going to play a pivotal role in some capacity for my basketball team. And I don't know if they've all let that come out and come to light yet. But hopefully we see it going into March. A lot of basketball to talk about, a lot of basketball left, and we're really excited to talk about it more here on the GCP. Cool. Well, that brings us to the end of the show, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure to get registered for the GSN Challenge 5 coming up on June 8th, 2024 at Briar Ridge. The links are everywhere. You can find the link on the ginpros.org website or ginsportsnetwork.com/TGC. You can find it on there. The link tree will be in the bottom of this podcast. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Gin Sports Network and at Gin College. And also be on the lookout for live streams of the podcasts that we host here on the Gin Podcast Network on Instagram. Brand new capability within our streaming software to stream to the world via Instagram. We're very happy to bring it to IG for to have our podcast broadcasted out there. It's really exciting stuff. And more avenues, more outlets, the better it is for us and our reach. So we're happy to do that. Happy to bring you guys that. And your convenience is our biggest priority. Good deal, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Gin College Podcast. I'll leave you guys with that. Have a great rest of your week. I'm John J. II. Have a great night.